Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Talking Point. My name is Fahraaz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. There is no voice louder than that of hunger. It is an Arabic proverb. Exactly 2 weeks ago, no fewer than 11 experts mandated by the United Nations Human Rights Council issued a mayday call about famine in Gaza. On the various shows here at Hilaal TV, we've been speaking to various experts, and they've been saying it. Those prophecies of doom have now become a reality. You've seen the pictures. Famine is real in Gaza. Babies, newborn babies, are not able to access the necessary food that they need to keep themselves going. The citizens of Gaza are not able to go ahead and access their necessity for food. Why? Because Israel has deliberately made sure that any aid that needs to enter will not enter. And 2 weeks ago, when Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, was asked, what will happen if famine occurs? He said, quote unquote, they can eat Ben and Jerry's ice cream. The arrogance of that very same leader. As we sit right now, as we have this discussion, no one knows the amount of deaths that are occurring due to famine. Let me welcome my guests for this panel discussion and talking point. From Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, Shuruq Asad, no stranger to us here at Hilaal TV. She's a member of the General Secretariat of the Palestinian Journalism Syndicate. And joining us from Johannesburg, I'd like to welcome Firoza Mayet, who is a Palestine Solidarity Alliance EXCO member. Shuruq, I want to start off with you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining us. Shuruq, what we are seeing now from journalists on the ground is that it's a clandestine call. It's a call for assistance. They have stood up and they've said, we're going to have this hunger strike because the famine in Gaza is real. And what we're seeing, the difficulties that they are going through, as a fellow media practitioner, it goes beyond words, isn't it?
Actually, when you called me and you said we want to talk about Gaza, I did not really know what to say, because I never imagined that we will stay 20 months under death, under loss, and now under the starvation and displacement, and seeing my colleagues and my family and all the people, 2 million people in Gaza, who are all displaced for maybe the 20th time, who lost everything from homes to loved ones to their equipment, to their schools, to their hospitals, universities. Now they cannot find anything to eat. I'm in daily contact with my colleagues. Today, sadly, we lost another colleague. She is numbered 228 journalists that we lose the past 20 months. We lost them just because they are journalists. We lost them just because they are citizens. Israel is targeting them, and now the starvation. And I'm receiving messages from colleagues that I don't know what to do. They say they are hungry. They say they are working under the hard weather. You know, Gaza is on the sea. It's very hard, very humid. They have children. They don't have food. Some of them fainted while doing their lives or while trying to cover the news. They cover the news of starvation, and they are starved. And if they find anything, today a colleague told me she is giving her newborn baby water with sand. She is putting the sand in the water, leave it a little bit to take some minerals, because she cannot find anything to give to her child, who is she afraid to really lose any time. She's very weak. She's very thin. She has elderly in her tent, her mom and her dad, and they are very sick, and they need really good water, clean water, some food. We can go on for hours and hours and days talking about how can something like this happen in this world in that we are living in, when all the world talk about human rights. and we don't see anything, as if it's okay, as if it's normal that this can happen. Minutes and seconds in Gaza are blood. Today we lost Wala al-Ja'bari also. She was pregnant. She died with her baby who wasn't born yet, with 5 of her children, with her husband. This is really insane and unacceptable, and it is really a crime that I hope it will stop now and not any other minute.
Firoza, let me bring you in. The footage we saw before was that of Israeli settlers, and we received this video early this morning of them blocking aid entering into the Jordanian part, which could have went into Gaza. Firoza, this impunity, it's been backed so heavily by the United States. When Benjamin Netanyahu went last week, it's sort of like Donald Trump told him, listen, you can do what you want to do. We don't really care what happens. And this impunity has been going since October the 7th, 2023.
So thank you so much for having me. And Comrade Shuruq, I hear you. We all hear you. It is the messages we are also receiving every day. Just last night, I had a family, a close friends of ours from Gaza, who are in this 3 generations. We're looking after their families and looking after the kids. And they're saying we are putting leaves into water to try and feed our kids. Our parents have no medication. So we hear you loud, but we also at such a loss, and we don't know what to do. And yes, the impunity of Israel comes from the structural level of our world, where it is not only the impunity they receive from the United Nations and the EU and other allies, they also receive this impunity from within in terms of their own policies, and their policies of ethnic cleansing hasn't started, and neither has the impunity started in October 2023. It started decades ago. And this has continued over many, many years, since 1948. And we are seeing what we are seeing today because they have been enabled by their allies. But more importantly, they are also enabled by the neighbors, by Middle Eastern countries. The powerful Saudi Arabia, powerful Qatar, powerful Egyptian governments aren't able to open those borders, aren't able to let the aid which is sitting at the gate to go through. So we ask ourselves, why this impunity? Why is it that the global majority, as the special rapporteur Francesca Albanese has coined, the global majority who have come out every day but aren't able to push their governments to take a stand, aren't able to make a difference, aren't able to make sure that these countries open the borders? Egypt is at that border. Why can those countries, and we're asking ourselves all the time, if they come together and they open the Rafah crossing, just the one border, and let those trucks in, what would happen? Why don't they have the courage? Why don't they have the conviction? They tell us that they have to be mediators. Mediators for what? The time for mediation is now over. We are seeing, as Comrade Shuruq has told us, seeing children dying, people falling in the streets, because there's no clean water, no food, no medication, and we are still talking about mediation. We are still questioning whether this is a genocide. We are sitting in meetings, we are having analysis, we are having conferences to discuss whether this is a genocide, but it's live streamed, it's in front of us, we can see it, there's no question about it. So this impunity has to end now, and it's a call that everyone needs to push their governments. They need to join the Hague Group, they need to join the ICJ, they need to hear the ICJ's ruling and abide by it. The occupation needs to end. The genocide must end as soon as possible, like now.
Shuruq, we've got about a minute left. Shuruq, I want to talk on Wala al-Jabari, who was obviously killed. I mean, we shouldn't be using the numbers. You've mentioned 228. But unfortunately, Israel has created this environment for there to be us numbering our fellow media practitioners.
No, they are not numbers, of course. They are names. We know them name by name. We know their families. We know who they are. We know their faces. We know their dreams. mentioning the number is only to say that this is a huge number, that it's 13% of the total number of our young journalists inside Gaza. They have never been numbers for us, neither the 18,000 children who died and who were killed, or the 14,000 females, or the people who are under the rubbles, or all our colleagues, like 1,700 who are displaced. This is not numbers, but this is maybe counting, telling them what does it mean that 13% of our colleagues died, while we have other numbers like 112 media organization not working anymore and bombed, and we have hundreds who lost loved ones or injured, without legs, without hands, or traumatized. This is not numbers. They are our colleagues. They are human beings, but this is what we are trying to tell the world. Your life is not more precious than any life of our colleagues, than any life of the children inside Gaza. No, Israeli lives doesn't matter more. On American life doesn't really matter more. And even if there was anything, you talked, dear Firoza, about the mediation. I totally agree. And I say, what does human rights have to do with mediation? Mediation is mediation, and human rights is human rights. It shouldn't be touched. Children to get starved, no, this is a crime. It has nothing to do with mediation. Even the doctors, and today I did some interviews with doctors. They say, how can we help those starved people and families while we have nothing first? And even the hospitals, they have nothing, and even the doctors are starved, and they can collapse any minute. It's really a tragedy. It is a genocide. Things should be really called by their names, and people are responsible. Everyone is responsible, and anybody in decision making who doesn't do any decision to stop this, whether it was the Arabs, who should be brothers, and I question a lot, or any other international community, then they are partners in this genocide, in my opinion.
After the break, we'll continue this conversation. The famine in Gaza, which has reached horrible depths. This conversation returns after the break. Welcome back to this panel discussion discussing the disastrous Gaza famine that is currently occurring. Firoza, I want to come to you. More than 100 NGOs, more than 24 countries have requested from Israel. And I want to use the word requested because there really hasn't been a demand that has been put out to ask them not only to abide by a ceasefire, but to stop the current carnage that is happening in Gaza. And what's interesting is that the response from the Israeli government was, well, it's Hamas that are blocking any supposed ceasefire deal that is happening. Again, it's impunity. It knows no bounds, doesn't it?
Absolutely, Fahraaz. So we are calling on all international solidarity movements to organize internationally, force their governments to use all means, all mechanisms, diplomatic, economic mechanisms, all mechanisms to ensure that their governments force Israel to stop what they are doing, stop the genocide, stop the illegal occupation, remove the settlers, ensure that everyone, or the siege even in the West Bank is lifted, that they abide by the ICJ ruling, that the key Netanyahu and his ministers are accountable as per the ICC. We also demand that this blockade get lifted immediately. This impunity can't continue, and I think we're continually saying they have immunity. They don't have impunity at all. We need to start isolating. Even from South Africa, we've gone to the ICJ. We are leading in the Hague group. However, we are exporting coal. We continue our trade relationships. And we need to call all of these things to account throughout the world. Every country has got trade relations. Every country is sending technology, is using Israel technology within their own countries, are sending energy to Israel to fuel the genocide. So we need to begin to come together as countries, as states who are members of the United Nations, and ensure that the U.S. themselves, who it's within their power to stop Israel from doing what they're doing. They have the leverage, and the U.S. needs to use this leverage to stop Israel right now.
Shuruq, that leverage that the U.S. has, here's the thing about Donald Trump, is that, many thought that he would come in and, of course, put even more pressure on Netanyahu and his government to go ahead and end this genocide that is happening. Quite frankly, that hasn't happened. And when you look at the right-wing part of this Israeli government, and look, this is not to go ahead and shy away Netanyahu from any supposed responsibility, because quite frankly, he's as responsible as the two gentlemen I'm going to mention, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who are making sure that, and they have said it out quite loud, that they want to go ahead and see the ethnic cleansing not only in Gaza, but also in the occupied West Bank. As long as you have those two right over there, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, we are not going to see an end to anything that is happening in Gaza and the West Bank.
First, Fahraaz, let me tell you what I think. I think the United States, they have a plan for what they call the new Middle East, where things will change in all the Middle East, and Israel will be the leader and the king of this area, with the protection of United States. This is first. And I think if the United States wanted from day one to stop this genocide, they would have stopped it. They don't want. And again, they are part in this genocide. Concerning Israel, yes, there is extremist government, but this government was elected from the majority of Israelis. I live in Palestine. I go, I work, I'm a journalist. I talk to Israelis. I know what they think. I know what they have on their media, on their channels, where Palestinians are dehumanized, where there's no children, no journalists, no doctors in Gaza, no human beings in Gaza. It's a whole system. There is Israeli society that is mainly of this society elected this government, and they believe in this government. So this is also an issue. Yes, it is Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben Gvir, those settlers, those extremists, but also there is a society inside Israel that mainly do not see Palestinians as human beings, and they do not even declare that there is occupation on Palestine since 77 years. And again, if we want to put all this into what's happening in Gaza now as starvation, if war or this genocide was stopped from day one and no crimes were done by Israeli army, we would not have reached to this. And now we cannot only talk about flour and water and food and milk. They are important, but we have to see them within a bigger context, and most important context, it's the freedom of Palestinians and ending this criminal, savage occupation that we see in Gaza, but also we're living it here in West Bank. And I have to tell you that moving around the Palestinian areas in West Bank is impossible now. I can spend hours in areas that I can cross within 15 or 20 minutes. 11 journalists of our colleagues were attacked badly. They were about to die by settlers' attacks. Israel banned 300 journalists only since this year. And those 11 journalists, by the way, only the past 6 months. We have nearly 50 journalists also last year attacked by settlers. Israel killed nearly 1,000 Palestinians in West Bank 30 of them by settlers in the north of West Bank and the refugee camp that are totally destroyed now. We have 50,000 displaced Palestinians. It is a mentality of apartheid. It is a mentality of crime. And what the people has to understand, it's about our humanity. People should stand and look at their mirrors and say, are we really human being? What we can do? It's very sad. Israel should be held accountable. And I think it's not only Palestinians who are paying this price. I think our humanity all over the world is paying this price.
Humanity paying this price, Firoza. But when you look at the two nations that refuse to sign this declaration calling for Israel to end the genocide and, of course, allow the aid in, two nations stand out. I mean, the most obvious is the USA, the other one, Germany. To many people, this shouldn't be looked at as a surprise. I listened yesterday, and I'm sure you also, Firoza, and I'm sure Shuruq did the same, to Antonio Guterres making his statement. And I kind of felt that what sense does it deliver given that any veto that occurs in the UN Security Council, it's the United States just decides to go ahead and create that veto?
Absolutely. So the structural power imbalance in the international platform is something that needs to be really looked at. It can't be that one or two countries have all the power to make a veto on important human rights situations. And that is something that needs to be fought by all the states, by the masses of people, and ensure that we have a global order that is relevant, that talks to humanity. We can't continue with U.S. imperialism, white supremacy, colonialism in this day and age. Those things need to stop, and those things are enabled because of the structural structure of the world power that was formed in 1948. And from then to now, we are still sitting with the same G20, G7 that have all of this power, especially the US. And you've seen, I mean, veto after veto, resolution after resolution that has been vetoed, and nobody can make any difference, which is a real problem. And I think that the other states, all other states, can come together and make a difference. They have to come together and make that and make a position in UN. They are making the United Nations irrelevant, and that can't happen.
After the break, we continue this conversation with Shuruq, Asad and Firoza Mayet. To stay tuned to Talking Point. Welcome back to Talking Point. Now, Al Jazeera Media Network released a communique calling on the journalistic community, press freedom organizations and relevant legal bodies to take decisive action to halt the forced starvation and crimes against journalists and media professionals in Gaza. Shuruq, I want to come to you for this because, of course, you would know this journalist very well, Anas Al-Sharif, the Al Jazeera Arabic correspondent, where he broke down. And for many years, since even the occupation had started, media professionals have gone through so much. But what we have seen in the last close to 2 years is beyond anything that any media practitioner could go ahead and cover, because they're not just covering the story. They're covering their fellow residents in Gaza, but also it is their families that they have to tend to. What Anas Al-Sharif had done on Sunday was just a summarization, wasn't it, of what media practitioners have been going through since October the 7th, 2023.
Yes, I think that our colleagues in Gaza worked in circumstances that no other journalist in this world ever worked. Electricity, killing, targeting, starvation, displacement, losing homes, losing offices, no food, no water, everything we can go on talking about those circumstances. And let me tell you that also Sally Thabit, my colleague, fainted on air. She works for Al Kufiya this week. Bayda Muammar was crying and nearly fainted on air. She works for Palestine TV. Anas and so many others, it's 2 years of covering this genocide while they are target also. They are target, but they are victims and they have families and they have to cover the news too. And note that our colleague Anas, I know his story from the beginning because he was one of the journalists who was threatened by Israeli army the beginning of war. If you all remember when Israel asked people to start leaving the areas in North Gaza and Gaza City, and Anas was one of the journalists who stayed and insisted to stay and cover this genocide and massacres, and he received phone calls directly from soldiers and officers, Israeli officers, and messages telling him and threatening him to stop covering and to leave. And then after nearly 48 hours, the Israeli airplanes bombed his home after this threat and killed his father and killed others of his family. So this was a direct threat and direct killing for his family. And we always thought that Anas, we can lose him any minute, seriously, because after those threats and the killing of his father, and now this starvation. So I think all of our colleagues are in very deadly situation. They are functioning because they believe that telling the story maybe will end this genocide. It's not. They're covering a story of their own. It's their own story. It's their own children's story. It's their home stories, their hospitals. It's their stories. They are victims, they are target, and they are journalists and human beings and mothers and fathers at the same time. Situation is really very hard. And losing them, hearing their voice, their weak voice, seeing them losing weight and getting pale, seeing them in pain and insisting to go on working. For example, 2 days ago, my colleague in Radio Monte Carlo Radio in Gaza, Wissam Abu Zaid,
Yes.
I know that I was shocked when I saw his picture in one of the demonstrations of our colleagues inside Gaza. He was really, I did not recognize him. And I knew from my colleagues in Paris that they tried to help him last year to leave Gaza, and he refused. He wants to do his job. He wants to stay in his loved city and not leave and do his job. But this doesn't mean that Israel has to target those people who are staying, living in Gaza. There's no excuse, in my opinion, and we cannot go on talking about excuses for anybody after 2 years of death and loss and this genocide.
Firoza, I want to come to you. When we tick the boxes of the Genocide Convention, obviously we would tick the yes sign or the correct sign. When it comes to Israel, it's the X, because quite frankly, when you look at the Genocide Convention, they've put journalists in harm. They've not just put journalists in harm, they've killed journalists. They've denied access to aid. They've bombed areas where there isn't any army combatants. In the case of Israel, they would say, we are trying to hunt down anyone that is associated with Hamas. And it brings the question when it comes to the international law book. It's thrown out of the window, hasn't it? Because it's quite clear that what we have seen for the last close to 2 years is a complete deterioration of what we would call international law.
Absolutely. I think the international law or the world order is at risk at the moment. I mean, not only at risk, it's already been discarded. So we are grappling with what we currently have in order to use those mechanisms in order to bring Israel to account and their allies to account. So it's become extremely difficult because the law is totally disregarded, and unless and until all the states come together and ensure that the law is upheld and there is accountability as per the law, as per the international law, will there be any accountability? Right now, it's totally ignored. So, I mean, from South Africa's side, we have had quite a few cases put to our government as well as ICC. All of these cases are sitting, matters are sitting, and other countries are doing something similar. But we aren't able to go forward because there is no political will. The Western countries' disregard of international law, which they themselves were signatory to, is ignored, and that is the biggest stumbling block. If they are not able to uphold the international law and the policies that come from this, the ethnic cleansing, the genocide, the destruction, the everything that's required for life itself is at risk. And Palestine is symbolic of what will happen to the rest of the world. It could happen anywhere, and we have no law to protect any citizen of any country, any state, if the law is not upheld.
Shuruq, I want to come to you before we go to the break. Associated AFP, the Agence France Presse, have said that they would like their journalists to be taken out of Gaza, given what is currently happening at this moment. Now, of course, it's disappointing, but it's necessary, because the more foreign press that is there in Gaza, the better it is for the exposure of the Israeli war crimes that are currently happening at this moment. But the ignorance of Western media has really shown us that when it comes to the coverage of the genocide in Gaza, it has reached new levels, hasn't it? And for a media practitioner as yourself, Shuruq, and you've been, of course, doing this longer than I've been doing this, it just clearly shows that when covering anything but the suffering of the people of Palestine, it is really pushed to the side as just a developing story or a normal story, rather than that requires the actual attention that it needs.
Actually, it's beyond disappointing. In my opinion, international media fell totally, ethically, professionally. They totally fell, and they have been like this when it comes to Palestine. As you said, everything changes. It's a different coverage. It's disinformation, long history of misinformation, and no ethical journalism. They have been, till now, even spokespeople to the Israeli army. They also dehumanize Palestinians. Palestinians are number for them, while the Israelis, they have pictures, they have name, they have families. And this idea of keep Gaza, instead of protecting people to stay in their land, is really strange. And it's very even late now, anybody now, after 2 years, to start talking about human rights and the rights of journalists. It's a bit late, in my opinion, because media played role. Not every media, of course. I want to thank all my colleagues who really stood hard with Palestine and with human rights especially. But others, so many in the international media, it was terrible. It was unethical. It was pro-killing, pro-genocide, pro-crimes. Even I remember, and I want to thank highly South Africa, seriously. Even when I remember when the court was, nobody even went live for it. If this was against Russia or something in Ukraine, things would have been different. As if people, I always say this, and it makes me feel very sad, as if human rights goes for special DNA in this world that we live in, sadly. So media should have done different work. Still, I hear some colleagues actually changed their view lately, though I say it's too late. But putting us, what also was very strange is that always this question about, are you a journalist? Are you a doctor? Are you a child? Are you a civilian? Always this, as if Palestinians media, international media, made journalists and Palestinian always, they need to defend themselves and say that they are human beings and that human rights apply to them. Uh, Even not telling the story of Palestine, that this did not start on the 7th of October. This started in 48, the first genocide for Palestinians. Everything was really misinformation to being really partners in this genocide. And still they are going on with this with really nonstop. And as I tell you, for me and my colleagues, we were just discussing this actually 2 days ago. I don't see them anymore and I don't trust them anymore. They totally fell. And I want to tell you what made Europe Europe long time ago and what made USA between brackets is the ethics of human rights and freedom. And now this is all down and fell. They don't have any ethical ground that they represent. And they should be held also accountable, in my opinion. Even the journalists
Shuruq, I have to
who
stop you there.
spread information, wrong information, also they should be held accountable.
Shuruq, I have to stop you there. Unfortunately, we have to go to a break, but this conversation will, of course, wrap up after this. Do stay tuned to Talking Point. Welcome back to Talking Point. Firoza, I'm going to start off with you. And we've just got around about 9 minutes left. So I'm going to hope to try and get all of this within this time. Firoza, an Israeli analyst, and when you hear it coming from within the inside, you know the situation is quite dire. He has called for an immediate sanctions to Israel. I know the Palestine Solidarity Alliance has called that. Listening to an elderly lady in Gaza saying, all the world does is talk, there is no action. Surely now this has to change, but are we going to see it happening?
I think there is no choice. I think I can talk from South African perspective, the fact that we have gone to the ICJ, we have called this as a genocide. We have gone to the Hague Group, and one of the key rulings from the Hague Group is to stop all ships docking at any port that is taking any ammunitions or energy that would fuel the genocide to Israel. So we as a country, and every third state needs to align to this ruling that we will not continue trading or sending any energy to Israel to continue with the genocide, that we will not allow any ships leaving our port or using our port. And we have been checking all the ships that have come close to our port are all going through to the Hadod port in Israel. We have stopped some ships with our comrades in Namibia and other parts of the world. So it is happening where countries are beginning to be aware of their responsibility, and corporates, as called out by the Special Rapporteur, Francesca Albanese, many corporates are complicit, and these corporates need to be called out. We in South Africa, together with a global activist, have called out Glencore, who is key in exporting coal to Israel. And we have had a global protest against Glencore, calling them out and investigating other companies that are doing similar or are complicit in similar kinds of exports. We are also calling on our Department of Trade and Industry to look at all our trade and to take some kind of action. We've had meetings with them. We are also going to have protest actions at the Department of Trade and Industry to ensure that we pressurize our governments to do the right thing. So we are hoping that international mobilization will move us into isolating Israel totally, economically and diplomatically.
Shuruq, there are calls now starting from the West for Israel to stop this. Listening to that elderly lady in Gaza when she's saying all the world does is talk, there is no action. I want to get your response to this, because that has been the case. It's just been speaking. There has been no action. Surely this has to stop. How are we going to see that happening in our lifetime?
I don't think they expect an elderly woman to stop this genocide. Of course, the people who control this life and this world and back up Israel all the time and selling Israel weapons and not giving any sanctions or accountability, they can stop this genocide. Even the UN, all those organizations, they could. Europe, Germany, France, Britain, United States, but they don't want to. They let this genocide go on for 20 months now, nearly 2 years. And they can, in my opinion, if they stick to international law, to human rights, if they stop selling weapons to Israel, if they do accountability, and even sanctions for Israel.
Firoza, Shuruq, I just want to get your closing comments. As this famine continues, we see the children starving, we see the babies not receiving their formula, we see the elderly becoming even weaker than they were. I don't think as a human being anyone can stomach this, anyone can view this without shedding a tear. Firoza, just your closing comments on this, and then to you, Shuruq.
I think that there is a real call for the rest of the world, for the international community, the global majority, as we call them, to come together and to take action immediately. We cannot enable a country such as Zionist Israel, apartheid Israel, genocidal Israel to continue with impunity. And unless we all come together and take action immediately, we are all going to be responsible for what is happening in Gaza, in the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory. And it's not something we want to leave for our children. It's not a legacy that we want to leave for our children.
Shuruq?
I add my voice that everyone should think of what they can do, from small things to bigger decisions. It's a responsibility for all of us to stop this genocide. And really, really, every minute is blood in Gaza. We don't want to lose more people. We don't want to see people starved. And people really rely and look at us and everybody really highly for this to stop. Already genocide was done. And now it's time to work hard to stop it and do accountability and stop this genocide, death and starvation in Gaza.
Shuruq, Asad, Firoza Mayet, shukran so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That is Shuruq Asad, member of the General Secretariat of Palestine Journalism Syndicate, coming to us from the occupied West Bank, Ramallah, and Firoza Mayet, right here in Johannesburg. She's part of the Palestine Solidarity Alliance, serving as the EXCO member. Well, that's all we have for you here on Talking Point. If you have missed this episode, it will be available on our YouTube channel with all other content. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.